It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
So here's the first strategy we're going to talk about. The actual technical name should be an annual tax-free Roth conversion strategy. But that's not what most people know this as. Most people affectionately call this the Backdoor Roth IRA strategy.
Now, what we like about this is Roth IRAs should be universally loved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is not to like about the fact that we know we love investing, we love exponential growth, but the bad side is that even with exponential growth, usually you have to pay our favorite taxing uncle, long-term capital gains or dividends. It doesn't matter what it is, or if it's a bond, ordinary income.
Yep.
But the thing is, with Roth accounts, you put the money in. Yes, you don't get a tax deduction on the front end, but whatever it turns into is completely tax-free. It's such a great opportunity that the government has actually put restrictions on who can do Roth IRAs. And they limit, if you make too much money, they limit by how you file your tax returns and other things. We're going to talk about this is a way that you can actually still participate in the tax-free Roth even if you make too much.
Yeah, the tax-free growth is just one of the many benefits. There are actually a number of benefits, and even above and beyond that. One, no required minimum distributions at age 72. With 401ks and IRAs, the government makes you start pulling that money out. With Roth IRAs, you can buy low-cost index funds, so low expenses, low fees. You get the tax-free growth and tax-free distributions, just like you mentioned. In a Roth IRA with a large custodian, you have a huge opportunity to invest in the entire investment universe, and you get flexibility with contributions, meaning you can put up to the limit or as little as you desire every single year, and you can even put in money for last year, this year. So it has a little bit of a time machine. You mentioned though, Brian, there are some limitations. Not everybody gets to do Roth IRAs.
Yeah, let's talk about this. I'll actually give you some numbers for 2022. If you're a single person, it phases out between $129,000 to $144,000 for single filers, and then for married filing jointly, it phases out between $204,000 to $214,000 on your taxable income. So pay attention to those numbers. But a lot of you who do make over those thresholds, that's you financial mutants, you're doing well in your career. It's not over. This is why we call this backdoor Roth IRAs.
And essentially, this is what the strategy is. If you're over the income limit and you have a specific type of account structure, the government, at least for now, has said you can do an IRA contribution and you can convert that to Roth tax-free, assuming some things are in place. So the big overlying idea here is, no matter your income, even if you're someone who makes $1 million, $2 million, $10 million a year, if you have the right account structure, you may actually be able to do Roth contributions every single year.
Yeah, so we've had Daniel create a slide that will actually walk everybody through kind of a decision grid matrix on how, if you should even consider this.
So here's sort of the flow chart of, can I do a backdoor Roth? First, are you under the Roth IRA income limits that Brian just expressed? If the answer is yes, then just contribute directly to a Roth IRA. You don't need to do the backdoors anymore. If the answer is no, well, then you have to say, are Roth IRAs or inherited IRAs the only type of IRAs that I have?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, this strategy will not work for you as currently structured. If you have simple IRAs or IRA rollovers or SEP IRAs, when you go to do your conversion every year, it's going to be taxable. There's a pro rata tax calculation that will determine how much of your conversion is taxable. Only the folks who only have Roths or only have inherited IRAs can do this. So then, if your answer is yes, those are the only types of IRAs I have, you can do a contribution to a non-deductible traditional IRA. Non-deductible meaning you put it into a regular IRA, you do not take a deduction on your tax return that year, and then you can convert it to Roth. It is literally a backdoor way for high-income individuals to still be able to do Roth contributions every single year.
Yeah, if you want to know where this came about, pre-2010, you actually couldn't do Roth conversions if you made over $100,000.
That's right.
But when that legislation changed, tax laws changed to where now anybody can do Roth conversions no matter what your income is. That's what opened this up, because you're not really, Bo said it, that's why it's called backdoors, because it is a way for people in higher incomes to get in. But the actual technical way this happens is you're making a non-deductible IRA contribution, traditional IRA, and then because you're making it with after-tax dollars, when you convert that to a Roth, because anybody can convert money, it's a tax-free transaction because you didn't take a tax deduction on it. You converted it because it's now unlimited income. It's all pretty square, and it's even, we've seen tax letters, we've done notices. This works right now. It currently is an active strategy.
Now, the one place we see people trip this up the most is they forget that piece about you cannot have any other IRA assets. If you have a rollover IRA from a previous job, if you have a SEP, if you have a simple, if you have any other type of IRA that's not an inherited IRA or Roth IRA, you cannot do this. If you are someone in those types of situations, you may want to think through, well, does it make sense for me to consolidate my accounts into like a 401k or a 403b so that I do zero out my IRA balances? We see people trip over this all the time, think that they were doing tax-free backdoor Roths, and unfortunately, come tax time, they actually have to pay taxes on the conversions they implemented.
I mean, the big decision factor is, did you have those IRA balances as of close of the previous tax year? So pay attention to that. And then one last key point on this is that just because you have IRA assets, if your spouse does not, you are in, just like IRAs are under your social or your spouse's social security number, you might be able to have a split household, meaning that you have an IRA rollover account, so you can't do a Roth conversion or backdoor Roth strategy, but your spouse who doesn't have any other IRA assets could every year fund doing this backdoor strategy.
Now, you may be saying, oh man, this is awesome. This is great. This is wonderful. You're not the only person that's realized this. I think the government has also caught on that this is a strategy that a lot of wealthy people are beginning to implement. And so there's been some fervor and there's been some backlash around it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's even been some headlines when, this was part of the whole Build Back Better, is that this was going to get cut out, essentially closing this opportunity off. But fortunately, or unfortunately, depending upon how you look at it, the government's so dysfunctional that this opportunity still sits out there. So I would encourage everybody, go see if this is something that does play into your financial, toolbox.